This is a brand new game in the Mana series. So as we're looking at some of this artwork, let me tell you a little bit of a story about the Mana series. So Secret of Mana came out, when I was a kid, you know? And I loved this game. I didn't know anything about it at all. But my dad gave it to me. My dad was like my biggest advocate for video games, and so he bought Secret of Mana for me. And turns out it was 3 players, but you had to get a Super Nintendo multi-tap in order to play 3 players. And so we bought a multi-tap. It was for one game, literally, Secret of Mana, and it gave you extra controller inputs. So that way, me, my dad, and my little brother could all play Secret of Mana together. I was the warrior, of course, the hero. My little brother was this small little magical, what they called sprite, but essentially like a dwarven person. And my dad was the girl. We made my dad be the girl. But it was really cool. So we'd play this game together, and it was such fun, you know, like similar to what he did in Final Fantasy IV for me, he would make sure that the characters were leveled up so that I and my younger brother, 5 years younger than me, wouldn't have a hard time playing. And we just had so much fun fighting monsters, going on an adventure together. And isn't that the cool thing about video games, you guys? Like when you get a game that you can play with your brother and your dad and your family and stuff, just one of the really cool things is that you can have an adventure from the comfort of your living room or your bedroom or whatever it is. Isn't that amazing? It doesn't cost anything but the price of a game to go on these epic adventures and to travel with friends and multiplayer. And I love that. So it's just this beautiful shared experience of me, my dad, and my brother playing these games. My brother wasn't into it. He liked hitting things, but he liked having an axe. What I'm going to try to do in these streams, anytime I'm trying out a new game, my curiosity, like it was with Lies of P, is what can we extract from this? What meaning can we extract from this? Secret of Mana was one of those games that taught me how to extract meaning. Let me tell you what my parents did. My parents were so good about this, always trying to push me in these ways. My mom bought me a small journal. You guys, are you ready for this? Bought me a small journal when I was playing this game. And whenever I would play story segments of Secret of Mana, I would also write down almost like a diary, a retelling of it in that journal. Okay, so I would write down the story of Secret of Mana, and I gave the characters personalities. I imagined conversations they had in the world while they were traveling. And are you ready for this? I named the characters because they didn't have names. You could name them. I named the hero Will. I named the girl Melanie, and I named the little sprite dwarf guy, I named him Sprite because I wasn't familiar with that term, so I simply named him after the soda. And so in the game, like, I named them all that. And my brother was like, "Why do I have to be Sprite?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's just the way it is." But that's what I remember from that, and I wish that I still had that journal because it was this epic story. It went through all of the things, and I used that. And I actually, funny story, when I was in 5th grade, I adapted that story and another game, Illusion of Gaia, for those of you Super Nintendo fans, nerds like me, in that one. I adapted that story and took pieces of those journals and kind of rewrote some of that stuff. And I was very honest. I was like, this was adapted from a video game and all that kind of stuff. And I won a Young Writers Award, right? I won a Young Writers Award on Illusion of Gaia and Secret of Mana. How cool is that? So just fun sort of stuff. Like, it was literally written on the wall when I was a kid. It was literally written on the wall. like this was in my future. But it's just so cool, you know? I'm doing my job before I was doing my job. So I shared these 2 stories tonight. Number 1, because I want you to know that I have some history with this amazing looking game, and I'm so excited to play this with you tonight. But number 2, if you are a parent or you love a parent of a young gamer, or if you are a cool aunt or uncle that's trying to get your nieces and nephews or whatever into video games, or if you're just a friend who has friends who have kids, this is a great way of doing it. I would buy them this game, and then maybe give them a journal and give them that challenge. Like, hey, you're going to go on an epic journey in this game, and I want you to just write down your thoughts, and like let's talk about it. Let's read it together, and tell me about the journey that you get to go on in this game. And I'm going to tell you something. If you do that, the time that your kid or your loved one's kids are playing that game, it's not going to be wasted. They're going to be developing writing skills, language skills. They're going to be developing critical thinking skills. They're going to be developing story skills. You notice that, and one of those things that I really, really think that if we did more of that in just our home life, then education would be more enticing to our kids. And so, anyway, that is my advice to you. That's the best advice that I can give to you, because that's something that people did for me. They would ask me about the games and they have me write it down and stuff. So really, really cool stuff. That's not for every kid, of course, but if you've got somebody that you think, like, hey, this would expand their love for the game, I highly encourage you to do it. This game is for people that want that old school fantasy adventure vibe. This also, let me say, would be a great game to introduce a child into the RPG sphere. If you have a kid or a niece or nephew or friend's kid or something like that, I would highly suggest this game. This is classic, though. This is timeless. The art style, it kind of harkens back to simpler times in gaming and stories. So I would expect a really straightforward story about this, but that's not to say that it's shallow. That's important. This game's lore regarding the divine and all that kind of stuff, especially, you're going to get an introduction into world mythologies. You're going to get an introduction into elemental beliefs, like elements of fire and wind and water and apparently wood. You're going to get a lot of really cool things, but you're also going to get some critical thinking skills. How are you going to be able to develop your skills and things like that? I would very much suggest this for my my nieces, nephews, and kids in my life.